Hello and welcome to Raising Anchor, your podcast and source for all things Rhode Island FC. I'm your host, Matt Entrican, coming to you on this Thursday, September 18th. RIFC overcome their first hurdle in their playoff ambitions, defeating Indy 11 1-0, mostly in part to some excellent defending and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of that luck that they bought along the way. Can this team keep up the momentum and lock down their spot in the playoffs and find a way to score against Miami come this Friday? We're going to find out all of that and so much more. And to do all of it, you know him, you love him. It's the one and only co-host with the most, Mr. Jason Carey. Jason, how is it going, my friend?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to hopefully very exciting weekend. On and off the pitch. We're going on a little trip here. Gonna have some fun and looking forward to this Miami match. It really feels like Hugo's been saying in the interview when you talk to him, like mathematically at a certain point it's going to click, and it feels like, maybe this is the hopium in me, but it feels like we're kind of maybe there. Maybe not exactly where we planned to be early on in the season. It feels like maybe we're about to turn the corner and kind of put on a little bit of a late season run.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you look at this team, it feels very akin to a Bob Lilly-esque type of game where defensively solid and maybe just get that one goal, maybe if you're lucky, 2 goals. And that's kind of the results that we've seen come out of Pittsburgh. At this point, I think, that has been the missing link where you talk about, defensively, I don't think there's really any homework left to do in that. It's more of the, hey, how do we find that goal? And, maybe Indy gave us a little something, a little gift for some of the other things they've done along the last 2 seasons.
I'd argue, though, you create your own opportunities there. When we start to actually just get into this, we've got some signings here talking about. I was kind of disappointed not to see own goal listed there. I mean, he is our top scorer this season.
It is wild that own goal is now tied for top scorer in the championship for Rhode Island FC. That is both you'll never sing that, and also that's a stat I don't ever want to see.
I would actually love the ridiculousness of if somehow we got to the end of the year just by forcing own goals. I can't wait to see someone actually buy a jersey of own goal and the number of goals he scored this year.
I'm all about it. But hey, listen, let's get straight into this. We are going to have a great time. This is not a live podcast. This is a pre-recording. We are recording it here on Thursday, but Jason and I are heading down to Louisville. We may go watch a Louisville game this weekend, so no idea. We'll try to get some soccer in, but we're excited. So this is a pre-recorded, so bear with us in the chat if you're tagging along. But Jason, let's get straight into this news.
Yeah, so Rhode Island FC announced Monday that it has exercised 2026 contract options for goalkeeper Koke Vegas and midfielder Amos Shapiro Thompson. 2 good pickups, I think, here. Both players were signed ahead of the inaugural season in 2024 and will return for a 3rd year with the Ocean State Club after playing an integral role for RIFC's young history. Koke and Amos' experience and leadership have been invaluable to us as our club continues to grow, said Rhode Island FC head coach and general manager Conno Smith. On and off the field, they are true professionals and embody everything we value at Rhode Island FC. They have had a positive impact since day one, and we are excited for them to continue with us in 2026. I noticed the press release didn't indicate either of them would be on a multi-year deal here. We've learned through our time doing this podcast that USL, for some reason, is incredibly secretive about their contracts. I wonder if this is more an instance where purse strings are getting tighter and we're looking to have some options. I mean, we're definitely towards the end of the year going to really have to have an interesting look/conversation about what the roster will look like next year. But at least we got a little bit of a head start here, and now we've got 2 of probably top contributors locked down.
Yeah, it is a bit interesting, right? Because normally the club is pretty good about telling us if it's a multi-year deal. We just saw that with the Diop signing and the Ndongo signings. So for the omission of this, it makes me wonder, what is the intent behind it as to why we wouldn't just outright announce it? On one hand, the club already has a significant portion, we'll talk about it here in a second, of players already locked in. When you look at these positions, Amos Shapiro Thompson's, that makes sense to me. He almost seems like he'll be a
kind of a surprise, I think, where we maybe would have thought at the beginning of the season, but the way he's played, it's a no-brainer.
Sure, but then like look at, when you talk about fighting for that next contract, Amos was one of the few players in 2024 that did not get an automatic extension. He had to go through a secondary level of negotiations. There was 4 players that had to kind of go back through that. They were all of our injured players that had to work their way back into a contract extension. Amos also, we have to acknowledge, he does have a long history with injuries. So for Connor to want to lock him beyond a single year, and then of course a club option, I think that's the standard. It would make sense to play it kind of safe. Also, you can't discount what he's done, but he is a midfielder in an all midfielder capacity. So, going year by year at this point, it makes a lot of sense. The interesting one though is Koke, because one, like you've got the pedigree of him being the first ever signing. Sure, he's getting into his 30s next season, so he's on the wrong side of the age, but he's a goalkeeper, so typically they have the longest shelf life.
Buffon played till like 41 or something.
Right.
And he could be like the standard for this team for the next 5 or 6 years.
Right, and he seems to be, he's the leading leader. He's El Capitan. He's a good locker room presence from everything I've heard and the conversations I've had with him. So this is a bit interesting because for me, it's like, why would you not go out and secure that kind of a deal, especially with Koke now going to be 30 by the point in this part of his career. He, Maxi said this, he's the other elder statesman, if you will, of the team. At this point, they're looking for places where they can put down roots and have an extended playing career, not necessarily how do I maximize my immediate value. It's like, how can I get that 2, that 3, even that 4-year contract so that I have a home, I have that consistency, and I get to play. It's a bit interesting with him why we wouldn't do that. I have a couple of theories in my mind, nothing confirmed from the club's perspective, but one, he's got some injuries. He's seen sizable minutes off the pitch in both seasons. First in that early bout, we almost forget about it now in 2024 where Jackson had to step up. And then in that May to August window where Jackson again had to kind of be our keeper's keeper. In that regard, I don't know if they're like looking into that and saying, hey, does Koke not have the body that can endure? Do we need to like make sure we keep options open in case we can upgrade? And it's weird to even think about upgrading there.
Yeah, I think part of it is the reality of the USL Championship. I don't think many clubs have the ability to probably forecast that far ahead and say, yep, lock them in 4 years, especially with the finances of a lot of these clubs. We knock on wood, hopefully we don't lose any more, but to lock someone into a 4-year deal and then 2 years into it, you fail, like you got to pay, I imagine you got to pay something out of that contract still. So maybe there's some sort of verbal handshake there where they're basically said, hey, as long as you do your best to stay healthy, obviously things can happen out of your own control. You are a keeper for the foreseeable future. Right. And we're going to keep giving you these 1-2 year deals because that is the financial reality of the championship. Maybe it's something akin to that.
And maybe too, it was just an omission unintentionally from the club, and maybe Koke is on a multi-year deal at this point. The other interesting one, the conspiracy hat, the tinfoil hat, is this a way to show Lee some faith to stick around a little bit longer, right? Like, we're going to extend Koke for just another year, but if you hang on with us, we want you to be the person that brings us it, because there's a lot of upswing with Jackson Lee, right? He's only 23, 24. You can get a few more years out of him. If they see the same attributes and they know they need to hold on to him, despite where Jackson Lee wants to go next, or despite him wanting to get to the next level of the game, you just don't know if that's also like, hey, we want you to know that we very much see you as a part of the future. But I also, we're going to have to start watching and monitoring these contracts, Jason, because Pro Rel is coming. Division 1 is coming in just 2-3 short years. So as these players start entering into longer contracts and beyond, we talk about promotion, the beauty of it. A lot of times in these jumps, the teams, the players that promote in are not the players that continue on. It's like, you got us across the threshold. Thank you for your service, but off you go. We need to now get players of that caliber so that we don't get relegated the very next season. It's a slippery slope. I don't know how all this will shake out over the next few years, but I am really interested in why Koke didn't get a multi-year, and I think that's going to be something we need to watch. Now that we've seen all of this kind of shake out, I want to break down a look to the future. We shared this a couple of episodes again. We want to just kind of break this down. Who we now know returning in 2026 are going to be the following 12 players in Chico, Noah Fuson, Clay Holstead, Frank Dudarce, Grant Stoneman, Karifa Yao, Maxi Rodriguez, Dwayne Atkinson, Amos Shapiro-Thompson, Koke Vegas, Amade Diop, and Matthew Ndongo. So we know those players are going to create kind of a core spine in that likely to return column. And we had a lot of conversation on the Discord about this, especially around Zach Haribo. When you go back and look at his October press release, it does say he's signed to a multi-year deal. We had a little bit of back and forth, and what I explained, because at that time I did ask the club, does that mean it's in addition to? So if it's a 2-year multi-year, does that also then add to his remaining, month and a half of his current year contract? And they told me at the time that that actually dissolves the current contract and starts a fresh new one with the clock running. So technically then you could have a contract where, they played the remainder of those 2 months in season, and then you get into the 2025 year. That's still technically a 1.2-year deal. So that would still constitute a multi-year deal. The club wouldn't go further because, again, like you said at the beginning, they're very caged. They'll tell us certain parts of the deals, but then the rest we have to kind of extrapolate.
It's all smoke and mirrors.
So, most likely, and we said this in the last time we recapped this, Haribo is basically the godson of Connor Smith. So I don't see him not coming back. But from the specificity of the deal, right now, this is still a wait and see. But in those other likely to returns, Hugo Bacharach, Ame Mabika, 2 former MLS defenders. We did the interview with Hugo. One of my favorite ones that I think I've had so far. Not to disrespect any of the other players, but like some players, you got to draw it out of them. And Hugo is just like, I'm going to answer whatever I want and how I want. So really appreciate it. Jojea Quizera, he did get his contract extended last year, but it seems like he's like in that Amos of, one contract at a time, 1 year at a time. Aldair Sanchez, not sure where he'll shake out at the end of the season now, especially when you look at what does Kano want to do next with this team. And then I think the big one right now, still weird that we haven't heard anything, especially if we're locking in Koke. JJ Williams should be in his club option year. I would be really curious what happens with him. I don't know if he's going to need the rest of this regular season to motivate him to find the goals to say, you have to keep me, or if this suddenly puts a big question mark on his future with the team. I don't want him to go, but I don't know what we think.
Yeah, I don't think most fans want him to leave. We still got a little bit of the season left. It's going to be a busy off season. It looks like, there's a lot of players there in that questionable list who we're really not sure what's going on with them. I mean, just to name a few, like Isaac Enking out on loan with Fort Madison.
Tearing it up with Fort Madison.
Doing well. So does he then come back and they say, well, you did well here, maybe we can kind of integrate you into the first team? We brought him up a little earlier, Lee. Maybe is Lee too good to the point where people come knocking and maybe we kind of can't hold on to him? You look at like another interesting one. Rio Hope Gunn was like a last minute signing who turned out to be huge for us early on in the season, was a like defensive stalwart for a few months there. And now it feels like, he did have a bit of a knock there. I haven't seen him in a little while. So I don't know what his kind of status is there.
Yeah, no, I right now, the only player from just a sheer number of minutes they've had, plus the injury, is Danny Rivera would be the only player where I would say, hey, don't fall too deeply in love with him.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like
the curse of Turnbull, man, that right side, it's never going to get solved.
It just may be something he just hasn't gelled with the way that the team plays, and it just didn't pan out.
Yeah. So let's get into other news. Really excited. Speaking of Isaac Enking, he will now finally get to return to the Puerto Rican national team in a friendly against Argentina in October.
Messi.
The Rhode Island FC midfielder currently on loan with Fort Madison will be one of 9 players from around the USL called up for this national friendly team action. This is really exciting in a lot of ways. Enking was immediately back for the very first one, that the Puerto Rican friendly at Centerville Bank Stadium, but he traveled to Pittsburgh, so he couldn't participate in it. So now seeing the opportunity for him to get to play for his country once again, I know how much in our conversations we've had, how much that means to him. And he's in kind of a much better form than probably arguably a lot of our Rhode Island FC players on the attack side of things. Like I said, he got a brace against AV Alta just a week or so ago. He got a goal in his opening debut in the Jägermeister Cup against Birmingham Legion. He's got 3 goals across all competitions, which, I know in the grand scheme of things, if you say all competitions, Maxi and Chico have a bit more than 3, but in reality, he's right up there with the best of our players. So.
And it's in a short amount of time too, because remember he was injured a lot of the season. So
yeah. Maybe Connor will pull a Minnesota United or a New England Revolution or a Nashville SC. Just do a little loan recall. You know, right when we need him.
I would think if he put up a few more numbers, we might really consider it. But at this point, with how much depth this team has, I think that there's probably the better opportunity to kind of let him develop there and see what, take stock at the end of the year. Can he come back and be a crucial part of this team?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to the minutes across both seasons, he's probably played less than 700 because of the injury and then the return. So yeah, I agree. Let him cook down in USL One and then see if he can make a successful reemergence. And then we've got a little bit of news finally to end. I don't know, a bit of a surprise, or maybe not a surprise if you ask people around the great state of Rhode Island. But it looks like football will not be the only football played in a regular cadence in 2026.
Yeah, so looks like URI is going to call Centerville Bank Stadium their home for their 2026 season. They're going to play 2026 football home games at Centerville Bank Stadium, Pawtucket. University and stadium officials announced on Wednesday. The Meade Stadium is set to undergo major renovations at the conclusion of the 2025 football season. URI Vice President and Athletics Director Thor Bjorn and Centerville Bank Stadium General Manager Paul Byrne worked together to bring the Rams to Pawtucket next fall. We are thrilled to partner with Centerville Bank Stadium to be our home next season, Bjorn said. Not only will we be able to play in a state-of-the-art first-class facility, but it will be a chance to showcase our nationally ranked program to our alumni and fans in a different part of the state. The dates for Rhode Island football games at Centerville Bank Stadium will be announced at a future date.
I was a bit surprised by this, not because it's URI playing football games. I did enjoy people going, oh, well, it just lost its soccer-specific status. That's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, and I at the end of the day, it was built for a soccer team. But for this, this day and age, stadiums can't just sit empty half year round. So if it is bringing, different events, even different types of sports to Pawtucket, I mean, I think it's great for the city there. It's great for the project overall that, this is not a failure as the Facebook crazies would tell you.
And speaking to that, I'm always interested in seeing what will that particular sport do to the turf conditions over a period of time. It's a newer turf. I don't think anything of it, but I do look at Bryant's turf, and it was beat up, right? That type of football, gridiron football, has a little bit more wear and tear on a surface like that from a contact perspective. So it's interesting to see one is what will the damage of this group come in and do to the stadium overall, but more to the point, I'm interested in the business aspect of this. Mm-hmm. Did we get a flat rate fee for contracting for this? Obviously, URI needed a place to call home. So is it a flat fee? Do we get a percentage of concessions and sell on stuff? Is it a combination of that? I'd love to know the details so that when we talk about how the stadiums like this can be viable when it's beyond just the soccer on the pitch, it's a really fun thing. But Jason, I don't mean to go full Rhode Islander on you, but a drive from South Kingstown to Pawtucket is no joking matter. I clocked it in for a Saturday run, and the fastest you can get there is a 45-minute drive. How many people do you think? I know we were schlepping it to North Smithfield last season, but how many people do you think are going to, on multiple times, give Pawtucket a chance, knowing that most Rhode Islanders, even the college kids, they don't want to go anywhere more than 12 minutes away. And with traffic, with that downtown area, they got to bypass if they're coming from the south. That could be an hour, 10, hour, 20 minutes. How is URI going to work this out logistically? This will be an interesting feat to watch.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll set up some sort of bus routes or something.
Got to take the train. You got to get a special URI train.
Yeah, URI train, but also I wouldn't be hey, here is a kind of meet up at a parking lot, fill a bus or two, bring everyone up. Once the game's done, 30 minutes after, meet up, we'll take you back. That might be an opportunity for those who don't want to drive. Train, you said, maybe there's some sort of partnership with just the state bus program that can kind of.
Are you kidding me? RIFC is getting like defunded left and right. There will be
Yeah,
no partnership.
Probably not. Just throwing some ideas out there.
Hashtag not a political podcast.
I am curious to see how it pans out. I'm also curious too, like, what if next year we kind of turn it back on? What if we are a home playoff contention team? What does that look like if we make deep runs into?
Oh, like, I think we always maintain our priority scheduling status. I would imagine, at least. I would imagine.
I would hope so.
We better. All right. So with that, that's the news. Let's get into this game. Jason, first off, we were late to this game. We had a blast. We were out on Nantucket that day, riding bikes around, being silly. So we showed up late.
Hills there.
So we went as fans, not doing any kind of press responsibilities. But I got to ask, getting into this match for a second, RIFC go and defeat Indy 11. We knew this was a do or die. It was a crucial game. Wasn't a must win, but it was a crucial game. We knew that kind of a lot of the season's hopes were on the line just because of the complications of how these results could shake out for the rest of the sprint to the end of the season. First off, beating them is huge. You could argue they beat themselves here. I mean, I don't care about that. The own goal is what it is. James Musa probably watched that tape a few times and regretted the actions that happened.
If you go back and watch it though too, Brito was there at the back post waiting. You also had JJ near post. I mean, there's a very good possibility that one of those two could have cleaned it up there.
Oh yeah, and Noah to cut through traffic and run as deep in as he did before the pass. Noah deserves almost the assist for it. I know that's not how it works in own goal structure, but Noah really set that play up so that the ball was going to find a way into the back of the net. It just happened to be off of the foot of Musa and not one of our own players. Ironically, it's the third goal that is an own goal for Rhode Island FC. We talked about earlier how we need to sign that player to a multi-year contract, but the other two coming from San Antonio FC and then the Phoenix Rising game at the beginning of the season. So has happened a lot. This game had several head-scratching moments, but it also had a lot of bright highlights, in my opinion. Watching it in person and getting to rewatch it on tape, I want to ask you, did we turn the corner after being ejected from the Jägermeister midweek, or are the same problems still cropping up and we're letting the impact of the result kind of wash over those things? We don't want to acknowledge the cracks, so to speak.
Maybe in a way, like Devin Kerr on the US All Access said that maybe it is a blessing in disguise.
He said some ominous stuff, right? He was like, there's a lot of problems going on at Rhode Island FC right now, and then didn't touch on it, just moved on.
But maybe in a way, he's right for us to kind of focus on just one thing. In that regards, defensively, we're continuing to shine. Koke, and it brought back the kind of passing out the back that maybe we were kind of missing with Lee. And Lee's fantastic, but that's just not his forte, right? He's just not that style of keeper. So we've kind of redefined a little bit about the way we are going through the back. We are, being very strong defensively. I mean, RFC's got 9 clean sheets here. Only Sacramento and Las Vegas with 8, kind of going this season, kind of are in that competition with us.
And they're only up by 1. They each have 10. And so we're only 1 behind having the lead in the clean sheet competition.
Yeah. And so, 6 of them come in the last 7 home games, especially when we started off kind of questioning our home form kind of earlier on. We were maybe a better away team, but something has clicked with the defense. We even made a few changes in the back, and it doesn't feel like there's any drop off at all. We were so strong.
Yeah, we can almost rotate any of that back line, and it doesn't seem to change on any given day.
Yeah, and they really they're putting it all on the line there. And
do you think fans can appreciate when you say something like 6 out of 7 of the last matches have been a clean sheet at home? I know when we lose or even draw, the fans
apologists are probably eating it up.
But the fans, they walk away with a nasty taste in their mouth, right? Oh, we didn't win and we didn't score a goal. Do you think that they, after the feelings subside for a second, do they go, oh my gosh, we kept it clean in 6 of our last 7 matches at Centerville Bank? That,
it is something to be proud of. I think a lot of the fans can maybe kind of grow into it, right? You see one game where you're like, we won 1-0, it's fine. But if you start to like another 1-0, another one, like, you can kind of really pride yourself on how strong defensively your team is in that regard. Something's really clicked with them in regards to just don't let in goals. And I mean, we played an Indy side who before this match only failed to score in 2 games. And with the exception of
I thank Aiden Quinn's wife for having a baby.
Yeah,
for that one.
Really helped us out there. With the exception of like those 1 or 2 chances towards the end of the match, honestly, they really didn't, like, we kind of neutralized them. They really didn't look that threatening. And I guess like you kind of brought it up here. Do we just kind of have to accept that this team is not going to score a lot of goals and that we are going to be like, what was it, 05, 04 Chelsea or something, or like, the some Wenger Arsenal years where they're just like, the joke is 1-0 to the Arsenal, where like, hey, we are going to be an absolute defensive unit. People are going to hate playing against us, and we'll find a way to get one in the back of the net.
Listen, I still think there are questions in this attack. I think Noah really unlocked something finally and has given me, we talk about being results orientated, and then sometimes we say, hey, like, trust the process, and we see things. I don't know if I've seen enough in the last few string of matches to say like we're getting there, but I really do think, despite the fact that the goal was an own goal, I'm starting to understand what these players can accomplish on any given day. I also think it's funny, like Revs fans right now online, they're going through turmoil, both in cheer and in sadness of the fact that Caleb Porter now out for the Revolution. So they're happy, like they get to reset, but now they've also realized that there was maybe still a chance, and there could be a chance for them to make the playoffs, but they kind of look at their season as being over. So they're both in that sad post-mortem of, well, we got what we needed, but at what cost? People have been attacking this team over the last couple of days. I'm not sure why, talking about how weak our attack is, and then I just remind them, well, yeah, sure, we only have those 17 goals on the season, but we've only let in 24 goals and are in the playoffs. Last time I checked, the Revolution are probably going to give up 50 goals this season. So let's put things in the perspective there. Getting into this though, and you bring up a good point about the defensive attitude and the shape, and you mentioned this on the Hugo interview. I was really kind of surprised at the time about how much he believed that this team was a feared team in the league. I had been thinking about it probably from the wrong perspective for a while, that teams can just engage in a low block, don't try to have the ball, still press, but like don't worry about possession. Rhode Island FC will play themselves into trouble or be ineffectual with their attack. And so from that perspective, I kind of looked at it as, like Rhode Island is not feared. But now that we get into the end of the season, you really need to have a great defense. It's that old saying of defenses win championships. If Rhode Island FC can get cagey and take a game to its absolute limits, and it makes it almost impossible. And we've seen this now, Louisville and
they
Charleston
only beat us on a free cross. And we kind of, in a similar way, like mentioned against Indy, we kind of really nullified a lot of their attack. They didn't have a lot of like clear-cut chances against us. Right,
but I mean, like, so Louisville and Charleston were held to the fewest shots all season for them in both of those games, and we beat Charleston outright. Loudoun, we kept 0-0. Again, reduced effort there in third place. I mean, like, the teams at the top that will most likely have to go through to make a deep championship run, I wouldn't say that we wouldn't be contenders. And so I'm starting to kind of drink from the same Kool-Aid that Hugo is about, this is probably a team that maybe they're not worried about,
because we're getting old.
Maybe they're not worried about getting scored on, but they know that Rhode Island's not going to make it difficult, and they're going to have to work extra hard to take it to that next level. The only downside is when we get to elimination soccer, whether it's in regular, extra time, we got to figure out that penalty situation then, because if it gets to that in any of these playoff games, so far we haven't gotten there. So that might be the missing link. I know I didn't get to go to the practice. I don't think you went either. I would be really curious if they practice PKs in front of the fans that showed up. That would be a lot of fun to know. But, we've talked about the own goals. We've talked about the lack of production. What does this team need to do to find a way to score at this point? Do we just need to continue that process? Like, are we seeing it now? Is it clicking? Noah's unlocking. JJ's right there, ready and willing. We've got Busy off the bench. Quizera looked a little bit better. He got some rejuvenation from the Rwanda game. Amos now out on the right. You're doing some stuff. Frank's now back into this. Like, are we there? We just got to hold on, or do we need to perform a little bit more surgery in this roster?
I think we just need to kind of, temper our expectations here. I think we need to kind of measure success in inches as opposed to miles here. Noah had a pretty strong game here, and you got to credit to him. Like we said, he forced the opportunity there that led to a goal. There was potential that even if it wasn't the own goal, right? There were other players in the box there. I think it's that directness that we've kind of been lacking a little bit. There's been maybe a little bit too much kind of looking almost for that perfect opportunity, a little bit too like slow, methodical passing that I just don't think suits this team. I think we need to, and there's nothing wrong with possessing the ball and maybe like slowing the game down. But then you have to look for that opportunity, and then you need to just kind of go almost into a full sprint and just say, like, we found a lane. Let's attack this lane. Let's move forward cautiously, right? Because we're very strong defense. We don't want to commit too many numbers forward, but like commit to an opportunity, be brave, go after those opportunities instead of it almost feels like they're caught between two minds sometimes.
And I would say if you saw him, definitely, he was a man on a mission. He felt more comfortable, more brave than I had seen him in a lot. And we have a chart we're going to show here in a second, but let's get through Coach Cano's words first after this game and how he reflected on the performance.
Was back where it needed to be the next day. We put it behind it. We talked about it. We put it behind us, and yeah, they showed grit, character, determination today. It was always going to be a tough game. It was going to be one moment, like all the games you've been in so far. So yeah, really proud of the character of the team and the team spirit.
It seemed like you guys had control of that game pretty much the entire night. Is that how you would assess things?
Yeah, I would think so. I would think we were the team that was, I guess, taking the initiative and trying to attack and create stuff. They have some dangerous attackers, but they play differently than us. They want to use their speed and quality to get in behind, but I thought we were methodical in the way we were trying to break them down.
I know Korea forgot the paddle out there, but felt like this was Noah's night. You agree with that assessment? Noah had probably the best night out of everybody?
I would say so many of them. I mean, Grant blocked the ball twice in that last play. Like, he had 2 blocks. Koke again, another shout out. You look at his improvement this year as a goalkeeper, and since he's come back, like I certainly think he's improved a ton this year, and that's a credit to him. He's one of our older players, but to continue to want and develop and get better, like I certainly see an improvement in him. But yeah, so many. It's team effort. JJ was defending, sprinting back. All the guys that came on impacted the game. So definitely want to know his better performances recently. But yeah, I think you can single out so many guys.
You mentioned Grant. You bring him on late. You probably don't expect that exact sequence, but right place, right time. How important was that sub, and what does it say about him?
Yeah, I mean, Grant is one of our leaders. He's a quiet leader. He leads by example, but yeah, I'll go to war with Grant any day. He shows up every day. Bringing him here, when he came, I really didn't understand the value he would bring and how important he would be to me personally. But yeah, Grant's super important to the team.
Offensively, did you feel like you guys were more dangerous than you had been previously? Is there still more room to provide more offense?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember. I remember having a big chance early. I think JJ's one. I would expect him to score that. I can't. Teams, like, they're a good defensive team. Like, this time of year, everybody in the league is better defensively and know what they want to be. So it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to score goals. So those moments when they come up, you have to take them.
At the end of the day, you got to win. At this point in the season, how important is
Very important because, to recover just for so many reasons, obviously for the standings and what it could mean for the future, their direct competition, but for the to now, like they did at home, for the future, their direct competition, but for the morale of the group to get a win after suffering like they did on Wednesday and losing like they did at home, being penalty kicks away from a final, like that just shows test of their character. So it's more important for the short term, for sure.
A bunch of changes. I think I counted 5, if I'm correct, coming into tonight. Obviously, you have to do some rotation because you're playing from Wednesday to Saturday, but the decision to leave Ibarra coming into tonight, to leave Ibarra, Clay, Maxi on the bench to start the game. How tough was that for you and your staff?
Really tough, and I had to leave a guy like Aldir out of the 18 this week. That was can only carry 18, so yeah, it was my choice, and I'm trying to be fair. And we're back healthy now. We only had one guy out of the team for injury. That was Rio. So, but I have to leave 3 to 4 guys now. Out of the maybe 5, 6, 7. I mean, if you count Kevin Vang, the way he trains and shows up for his teammates every day, deserves to be in the game day roster. But we're so deep and so healthy right now. So I always have to leave a good player out of the roster. Always.
In terms of the 11, though, was it always the plan to not start Ibarra, Holstead, and Maxi, or was that kind of a last minute thing?
I mean, yeah, it wasn't. I don't make decisions like last minute. I think through them, and I think through all the consequences. And those guys played a bunch of minutes. Zach didn't start. Amay didn't start. Amos played 60 minutes both last Saturday and Wednesday. Like, you're just trying to balance the minutes. And ultimately, like a guy like Hugo played 390s. Like, but he was so good. So just trying to balance the minutes and be fair, because all of them are working hard. Working for the team, so it's just tough decisions, but first world problems for me, I guess.
How does it feel to be able to control your own destiny from here on out now?
Feels good, but yeah, we haven't done anything.
Feel to be able to control your own destiny from here on out now?
Feels good, but yeah, we haven't done anything yet. We need to keep going. They're not going to go away. I think Tampa won tonight. Birmingham's not going to go away. Miami's, who we play next, they're not going to go away. So yeah, we have to keep improving and keep getting better and yeah, keep control of our own destiny. We said that tonight. Like, we can control it and don't give it back.
Grant Stoneman will go to war with Connor Smith. I don't know what war that would be, but I would not want to be on the other end of that. Really appreciated Quinlan's attempt to ask, is the Maxi project over? You have Holstead and Ibarra, your 3 spine midfielders now on the bench. He was almost right. It wasn't 5 changes, Jason. It was 6 player changes and 2 additional positional changes, as we saw a very interesting lineup here. I think this is the most we've seen in a single game transition from one match to another, even including things like the Open Cup and Jägermeister experimentation this year. What does that say as we walk through the roster construction? What does that say about how Kano really had to set this team up for success on the week?
Yeah, it's interesting, but let's just, we'll talk about that here in a second, but let's just kind of run through it. Koke Vegas in net, obviously. In the back 3, we've got Frank Nodarce, Karifa Yao, and Amay Mabika, so 2 changes there. We've got Amos Shapiro Thompson, Zach Haribo, Hugo Bacharach, and Jojea Quazera there in that kind of midfield 4. With Joe Brito, JJ Williams, and Noah Fuson up top. This was actually Frank Nodarce's 100th career USL Championship appearance.
I mean, again, we made the joke about one of the things that worked well for this team is that Aiden Quinn had to skip out on this match, a last-minute scratch, as he found out that his wife would be delivering their second child. So we need to send a gift to Mrs. Quinn and thank her for timing that in the best way possible, as this was probably a very crucial game. And Aiden said it himself, it wasn't a game he wanted to miss, but he wasn't going to miss the birth of his child. I think all of us can agree to that.
Yeah, that's fair.
I guess when we talk about this, though, this was a kind of a weird construction. Hugo, we've been saying it. People haven't believed us that the club feels he's a midfielder. I know in the interview earlier this week, he said he wants to be a center back. He thought he was coming in as a center back. Very Steven Turnbull-esque of like position versus expectation. But the pairing there, it really worked. Yet we leave and abandon those other three players. Is this a sign of something to come, or was this more of a Kano had to rotate the players and manage those minutes?
I think it's some rotation. I think also he kind of mentioned in his press conference there, he's suffering from success here in a sense that everyone is healthy. We've made a lot of signings throughout this year to kind of bolster the squad because there are times where we are depleted and we weren't fielding full benches. But now that everyone's back, I don't know. It's tough to say. I don't think we'll be seeing this many changes to rotate through the year. You know, like you said, I didn't envision a double pivot of Bacharach and Haribo, but I mean, it did work. So it's tough.
Which makes you wonder, how does he then set up? If it's managing minutes, you get a week off to recover. Again, if this team pulled that off, like, do you ride or die by that until it fails you?
I don't know, because I mean, you know, we left some very talented players on the bench there. You know, Clay, Maxi, and Ibarra. And those are starting caliber players on pretty much any team in this league. Like I don't know if we should be experimenting, but if it's working, it's hard to kind of push back against it too much, if you will, right? Like if everyone is on the same mindset and they're willing to go out there and put their life on the line for the, you know, for the crest. I mean, it's very much in the back, like we talked about earlier in the pod. The back line feels almost interchangeable, and it just doesn't matter who you put back there. They're going to keep a clean sheet somehow. I don't know if I'd argue the rest of the squad so much if they are. Maybe that's part of the problem, is because we're not scoring goals. He's still like, the back line doesn't matter what I do with it, it's fine. But I'm going to kind of play around with the midfield in the front until I find someone who can score more, like a lineup that can score more than one goal.
I mean, at this point, all eyes will be on if the Maxi Rodriguez experiment is, I wouldn't say over, but shifting. I guess that feels like the right thing to say there, because I was just very surprised. I was very surprised in how this went down. I will say, and I'm glad that he called it out in the press release or the press conference, Aldair Sanchez not even making the 18. I mean, I had him as my player of the year. Now I can't even get my player of the year in the starting, 18. So no justice for Aldair. And it'll be, I mean, I think this week he'll show up just because of the Amay red card, but it is an interesting position to be in here now with this. And then of course Joe Brito gets his first start in what feels like forever, and they win the game. So maybe the Portuguese is the secret sauce here for this team's construction. I want to talk to the big part. They called it out rightfully so. Krifa has been lights out over these last few games in that back line. Definitely put in the work. I think the only reason Stoneman didn't get a nod for player of the match is because the saves came after the voting was done there. But huge blocks from Grant Stoneman off the line. I was worried. I saw Koke come way out into traffic. I was like, he's never going to get to that ball. And then it gets away from him. Like, well, there's our luck gone. And Stoneman was like, no, I got this. Not once, but twice. I want to talk about Nofusan here at length. I think that, we mentioned how important it has been that we see him get back into this game and make a positive contribution to the squad. First and foremost, he looked completely unhinged in the best way possible to describe. You mentioned earlier he needed to play braver. I think he did that, and he completely destroyed all of his season stats so far in the year when comparing it against this particular matchup here. So on the screen, for those of you watching along, you're going to see in the blue, you're going to see his singular performance against Indy 11 in this match. And then coupled next to it is his average distribution of the same stats across his other 22 performances this season, which are then broken down by minutes. So basically, it's an average of his time spent on the pitch this season. And right away, this game earmarks as one of his best performance. It is his best performance of 2025. In chances created, 3 chances. He's only averaged 1.04 for the rest of his season. The big one, though, touches. He had 60 touches this match. He's averaging less than 40 per match. There was a game 2 matches ago. He had 20 to 30 minutes and he had 12 touches in the game.
I think that what I would argue here are 2 of the biggest stats that I want to point out. And I've been maybe a little critical of Noah throughout the season about it, is passes and passes into the final third. He's been averaging 3.1 passes into the final third this season. He had 22 in this game. And then for passes, he's been averaging around 21. He had 34.
Much
and
more
I think
involved in this
there's
match.
been a lot of times where, and a lot of fans have seen it, I think he puts his head down and goes into a blind alleyway and kind of gets kind of lost in the sauce, where instead of, there's a balance of like, I'm going to dribble, carry the ball, X amount of yards, and then I'm going to find a teammate, instead of like, I'm going to do this all myself. So it's that kind of combination that I think really kind of unlocked it and made him look really threatening on the night.
Yeah, and in addition to that, like, he was also not afraid to take on the opponents. He had he improved all of his duels, both on the ground and in the air. He actually attempted in a single match 25% of his total dribbles for the season in this one game. So like, he had a little bit of confidence. Now I will say that bravery came at a risk. He was displaced and lost possession more than he has lost at any given time in the season. But I think that's the secret thing we talk about, especially with him and Jojea.
Yeah, remember last year, Jojea Quizera was leading the team in being dispossessed, but also he was our most lethal player. So he had that bravery, and he was like, played without fear of, if I lose the ball, it's fine, we're going to get it back.
And I think that's the decoupler. So if Kano, as he's listening, or one of the technical staff, I think this team has to be okay with having the ball taken away from them. Defensively, we are so solid in our shape and our discipline that we can hold on from an attack. We have to play that braver style. We can't need to be worried that the ball is going to be taken away from us in a less than opportune spot. I think this is the blueprint going forward. We talk about what will work, and I think Noah gave us a glimpse of it. Now the question becomes, did Noah do this because he finally, got whatever was off his back and he's back to who we know he can be, or was it the people and the positions around him? We've never seen it.
He saw Infinity Castle and he was just really, really hyped.
We've never seen a double pivot of those 2 players in that midfield feeding him and supporting him. He finally got to link up with Jojea on that left side. Historically, usually he's either opposite Aldair or on the other side of the pitch. Like, is it because sometimes some players shine brighter with the players around them, right? Like, I think Josie Altidore is circa 2012. Like, everyone's like, how is he this good? It wasn't Josie Altidore by himself. He had a cast around him. So that's the other part of the blueprint, is now that we know that you just got to be able to play a little riskier, play a little more brave, who are the right pieces around to make this look. There should be 2 to 3 goals at a minimum in this Miami game if this is what we saw from this Rhode Island FC squad on Saturday. Like, without a doubt.
Absolutely.
Any final thoughts on Mr. Fuson before we move on?
No, I just think that, like, I don't want to call any individual players out, but I think our attack, like, as we've been talking about this whole pod and for a while now, the defense is basically sorted out. I think the attack needs to figure something out. I don't know if they just need to get that extra 1 or 2% to really kind of unlock it. But, we talk about that bravery. I think that for us to really be successful in making the run, sure, we can lock down the back, but if we're not scoring goals, we're not going to win goals. We're not going to pick any points up. And, we're maybe kind of flutter out through the rest of the season.
So here's Noah Fuson in his own words after the match.
Getting into dangerous areas of the field. Was that on your mind when you made that cross?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I had a lot of time, and I knew JJ and Yeah, it's massive, especially, against a team that we're close in the table with and we're competing for a playoff spot with, and who we also lost to earlier in this year. So it's really big to get a win against this team, and I think it's really good going into this final stretch of the season, pushing for a playoff spot.
Obviously, it's a little bit of a different year for you compared to last year, but watching you tonight, it felt like you were out there looking to prove something. What was your mindset coming into this game?
Just to have fun and enjoy the game, and try and be creative and do what I can to help my team win in the final third. Work hard out of possession and do my job. But once we have the ball and we get into the final third, just try and make things happen, be creative, and just play free, have fun. And that was my mindset coming into the game.
Obviously, Indy would have been content leaving here with a point tonight. You didn't let that offensively dictate how you guys were going to play. So, what can you take from this performance to the last 6 matches, you think?
Yeah, I think the speed that we got the ball forward and into the final third was really, really good tonight. And our link-up play and our kind of combination play around the box, getting, Zach running in behind from center mid, Jojea in behind, myself, just combining and finding different ways to hurt them, whether that's through a cross, through a combination, a long shot. I think we had all those different ways of attack on display tonight, and I think that'll help us be successful if we continue to do that in these last couple games.
Kind of going off that, has that, in your mind, been the missing piece in this offense? Like that, you mentioned linking. Has that been part of it?
Yeah, I mean, we know we have incredible players going forward, and it's just about doing what we can to play to each other's strengths and finding the chemistry with each other that we found last year, this year. And yeah, I mean, we know we have the quality and the pieces, so it's just about putting them together in the right way, and it's going to happen. I think tonight was a really positive sign, so hopefully we'll keep it rolling.
You're one of the many guys on this team that represented as great spokesmen. And I talked to Hugo a couple of weeks ago, and he said, the thing that stands out about this locker room is that we're not just teammates. It's a very tight-knit group. How important has it been to keep that collectiveness together through everything you guys have gone through this year?
Yeah, I mean,
Do you think it would have been any different if the locker room was like even in the slightest bit fractured?
100%. I can speak on it personally. Obviously, last year I had an incredible year personally, and as a team we did. And this year, it hasn't been quite smooth sailing, and, there's been some older guys who could easily, turn their back and be like, Noah's not doing what he did last year. What's up with that? And, bring me down. But, there have been guys that have reached out and really helped me and given me words of wisdom to help me personally get back to being at my best. And I think without that sense of family and brotherhood that we have in the locker room, that things would for sure have crumbled, because I think this group has so much resilience, and I think that's what's going to carry us to be successful here in the late portion of the season and the playoffs.
I got to put you on the spot. Who was it?
No. Gotta keep that close to the chest.
So we both know. I mean, he said an older gentleman. It's got to be Maxi or Koke. I mean, those are the oldest gents in existence on this team. And I'm just spitballing that. He didn't tell me or anything like that. It was good to see Noah smile. I feel like he has not been happy because he has put a tremendous amount of burden on his own shoulders. And so, him saying, I got to have fun. Hugo said in the interview earlier this week, he's just having fun right now. I think that's going to be a big catalyst for this team to make it into the remainder of these games and kind of go from there. So it'll be interesting to see.
I mean, even if we go back real quick to Kano's interview, I mean, compared to after getting knocked out of the Jägermeister Cup, I mean, he looked much more like kind of positive. Almost feel like maybe he's starting to kind of like believe like, okay, maybe it's starting to turn out right. Because there were times where we're like, hey, Kano, what does this team have to do to score? Like, I don't know. And so, maybe he really feels that they are turning a corner, and we are kind of just on the brink of starting to run here.
So let's get into some of the significant moments of the match beyond the goals and the saves. And that was some of the disciplinary problems that happened on the pitch in this one. A little sparks flying First, Ame gets his first red card in the USL Championship after his 18th appearance in the 88th minute. Jason, the red was initially listed as last man, technically meaning a dog. So I thought it might have been violent conduct because of the angle, and he's so much taller that arms coming across most people's heads. So I saw him trying to jockey through it. Was that two players coming together in a 50-50, or was that a true denial of a goal scoring opportunity?
I kind of went back and watched it a few times, and I think the reality is, you want to argue it's 50-50 as a fan of RIFC, and you could say, oh, Kizza made a meal of it, but that's where as a defender kind of have to be like very mindful of what you're doing there. And so the reality is it is Kizza did have a bit of a leg up there on Ame. And so ultimately it is a dog. So, when we look at it, Karifa was a few steps behind. I think if he had a bit of a leg up there, you could say, okay, well, there's two players back there. Because when you look at a dog, so there's a few different things that you have to take into account, right? Like, what is the direction of the play? How many players are involved? And Karifa was just a step or two behind. So at that point, I don't think he was going to catch up to Kizza, because Kizza is kind of known for his speed there. So I don't think there's much argument, I think, that we could really have here.
Yeah, and if it was that obvious of an error, Kano could have gone to the disciplinary committee and had it overturned. There's not enough there, even if you don't agree that it's a dog. So
I think he did what he had to do at that point. You're it's the end of the match. You don't want to kind of give up a goal scoring opportunity of that caliber that late in the game.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, whether you agree it was dogs or not, and we talked to several refs, we have a good ref pool of people that come and talk to us and challenge us to make sure that we don't fandom out on it. Even if they got it wrong, even if we got it wrong, what didn't get it wrong? That's the ball, because the ball don't lie. On that set piece goal from that dead ball situation, Koke puts in a beautiful save, punching the ball out. And so as long as we keep it clean, that's all that matters. But in terms of red cards, there
was another one.
Well, before we even get into that, there should have been maybe even another one after that. But with that red card now, we are at 6 in regular season play. I thought we were in first, but Miami went and said, hey, hold my soccer ball. I got to go and get an extra red card. So Miami now in first place with 7. They have the worst red card rate of the season, but we also do have the one in the U.S. Open Cup with Karifa. So technically we are at 7 for the season,
all comps,
blowing our stats away from last season. So we're in a little bit more of a trouble. Weirdly enough, though, you would think that would also translate to some worse yellow card performance, because we haven't had any players suspended yet on yellow card disciplinary reasons. Went and looked at the stats. We're mid of the table in total yellow card accumulation this season. Very interesting how we always think we're this physical, aggressive team.
No breaks.
No, who's in the lead right now? It's FC Tulsa. They have double the amount of yellow cards we have almost. So go figure. But to your point about talking about the other red card, Elvis Ammo was like, hey, I want in on some of this action too.
Yeah, so late set piece there. Koke kind of comes out off his line to kind of fails to deliver the punch there. And the hero of the hour there, good old war buddy of Kano's, Grant Stoneman, makes a diving deflection there on the line before Ammo tries to go for a bike at short range. There's a bit of chaos there in the box. Williams is celebrating the defensive action with his team, and Ammo just punches him in the back. It's kind of weird. It is common for teams to celebrate that defensive action. I don't know why he felt he needed to take it out on Williams there.
I looked at the play, and as Williams is stepping over him to go and celebrate Stoneman, Stoneman's getting picked back up off the ground now because they both went to ground in the play. You could argue that Williams may have said something to him, because his head direction is down at him, but it's only for a split second. So he could have antagonized Ammo, but there's not enough there to make any it's not to justify a punch to the back of your spine once you've turned or moved past. He didn't step on him. He didn't clip him with his legs or anything. He looked at him, and then you could tell he's just locked on to Stone and wants to celebrate, holding on to that clean sheet, and Ammo just fires, and it's right in front of the ref. Like, and I always love when a player gets caught red-handed, literally, and then like, what? I didn't do anything.
It wasn't me.
Yeah. So Ammo's immediately sent off. Now Ammo's weird. He's a kind of a support player on the attacking front for Indy 11. So it's not like to the same caliber of us losing JJ Williams. You could argue with Mabika out. We've talked about that interchangeability all night now. So like we have the ability to fill in the gap for him. Ammo, it's not quite the same with the roster of talent that they have on the attacking line. But I do want to ask you, did you see what happened after the final whistle had been blown? Because I think that there's another red card in this game, and no one's talking about it. I think we need to talk about it.
Yeah, I went back and watched it too, and I could see why you would argue that. I mean, I think in your case, you're probably thinking like Connor should petition it, and I think it's just more very unsportsmanlike conduct.
That's still a red card.
It's
also, if there's no game, it's the same as like in a dead ball situation. If the whistle is blown, all bets are off at that point. So let's paint the picture for the listeners, because some people may not even know this happened. So after the final whistle, and it's a solid whistle is blown, 3 seconds transpire, and it's either Cam Lindley or it's Jack Blake. I think it's Lindley based on the positioning, but the camera angle was too far, and I was on the wrong side of the field, and so I can only see the broadcast replay. But it's either the 6 or the 8, so it's one of the two of them. After the final whistle, picks up a ball off the sideline off of like that stationary place where you grab the ball, throws it in the air, and volleys it straight into the back of Karifa Yao. And I don't care what you say, and I don't care about the size of the impact, the quality of it being a violent conduct. It is inappropriate sportsmanship. It should be cardable, and it should be a red card, because right now we need every advantage, and Connor should absolutely be petitioning that so that they have one less weapon on the bench. Because remember, we're now ahead of them, but they are still very much in contention for fighting for that 8th spot. I say Connor should have gone to disco and at least thrown it in there like, hey guys, just take a review of this play. Last year, you red carded my boy Noah, if you saw it, and he never even touched the player. So like, what are we doing here with our lives?
Yeah, but we've also saw that with Siaha, like, sure, he didn't hit anyone, but that was incredibly unsportsmanlike that he did. It's great for like the rivalry, but he faced absolutely no consequences. Which
is why I'm saying it's violent conduct. He could have killed Karifa Yao with.
I think you could also argue that maybe he because his thing is there could be plausible deniability. He could just say that he was kicked the ball out of frustration and he's not actually that talented of a player. Didn't mean to kick him.
Sure, but by that same token, if the ball had just shanked to the left, like your golf swing, and hit a fan in the face, he would have absolutely gotten a red card.
Yeah, I would love to see them.
I'm just trying to put strings together to get any advantage for Kano and the boys we can.
No. I totally agree with you. I would love them to kind of review things like this for unsportsmanlike conducts, and if anything, like almost like add like little yellows or warnings and fines, or like
even if it's a yellow card and it adds to the
make them go work a soup kitchen for a day or something, like a punishment, like a like, hey, don't be a jerk. Right, especially after the game's already done. During the game, you can
go pick up litter on the freeway.
Yeah, something like that. You could argue during the game, like the adrenaline gets to you, the heat of the moment. All players at some point lose their heads, but the game's over at that point. You can't do anything, and you're still kind of pouting about it.
Listen, I'm only slightly joking, but I'm also very much not joking. Any advantage? We got to move on for the sake of time. Want to look to these playoffs now as we talk about the Eastern Conference standings and how this can all shake out for Rhode Island FC. When it comes down to it, this win was so critical for the standings. It puts Rhode Island FC back into 8th place on 27 points.
Back, baby.
But Indy 11 right behind them with just that 1 point gap. We talked last week. I still think the magic number is probably 9 more points. So I said last week that with Indy included, you needed at least 12 points to get a playoffs berth. Obviously, the math would say that you would need to win every single game remaining to control your destiny, as Tom was asking Kano. the reality is no team is going to go perfect through all of the different standings. Teams will have to lose along the way. I've got this more targeted at about 9 more points out of the remaining 6 matches. Could go either way on how those things go. I still don't think Detroit is going to maintain their I think they're going to fall a few more positions. Unclear if any of the teams behind us, they're very much still in it, but like could they it requires the teams ahead of them to drop points more so than to the wins that they would need as well. So when you look at this, you can say it's 9 if your glass half full. You can say it's the full 18 if your glass half empty. All that matters is basically you got to win the 6 remaining matches, and you don't even have to worry about that math.
Absolutely. I would argue I think it's probably feels a little more like 12, right? I think that, Indy's not out of it. Like you said, they're only 1 point behind of us after this.
They do have the toughest schedule, though.
Yeah, but they've proved that they can be a difficult team at times, right? They've only failed to score in 3 games this year. So they're going to really test opponents' ability to kind of outscore them in a way, if you will. And with the exception of Louisville and Charleston, who score for fun, like that can kind of be ups and downs for a lot of teams. So, RIFC, like you said, back in 8th place, 7-6-11 record, 27 points. Indy's right there behind us at 26.
Yeah, lots of pressure. Meanwhile, Miami, it's not like they're flying high anymore. They were when we last saw them, so I have no idea what happened. We're going to talk a little bit about their drop-off, but they are back in the basement, something that was reserved for Hartford this year, and it's like the 2 teams just had a quantum leap moment and just switched places, because now they're back in that 12th place position with a 5-6-13 record. Things are not going well down in the Homestead area for Miami FC.
Yeah, when we kind of want to recap our history against Miami FC, 3 meetings so far. RFC was we had a lot of fun against them last year. 2 wins, 1 loss this year, although unfortunately, so both of those wins coming last year. First match at Worldwide Stadium last year, July 13th, RAFC go up 3-0. They win the game 3-2. It was a little bit of a nervy second half there, but ultimately we got it done. And then the second, the infamous 8-1 thrashing.
Oh, thank goodness. I thought you were going to say the thing.
I mean, I want to.
Don't jinx us.
But, we'll leave that in the past. We've already kind of made fun of the team for that a little bit. And I think that because of that 8-1 victory, that's 11 goals we scored against them last year. I think it gave us a little bit of a false sense of security and didn't take them too seriously. So when they came to town this year on June 7th, arguably an entirely different team. Last year, they had your Italian national team, and now it's like, Argentinian Portland Timbers 2014. So, very much different team. Veteran Sebastian Blanco put that set piece goal against us, and we lose 1-0. In regards to their form, when we look at who's really done well for them this year is Francisco Bonfiglio. He's actually scored 7 goals since we last met. But the results would have you believe otherwise. It's crazy. In those games where he scored 3 losses and 3 draws. So he's not actually been the deciding factor for him. He's definitely putting up numbers, but they're really struggling in all competitions. They've only picked up 1 win since we faced them. And of course, somehow it's against Charleston Battery. But also it was a week after we faced them. So their collapse was just delayed there a little bit.
Can we talk, by the way, the Sebastian Blanco goal? I had to check it before I intervened. That's been his only goal this season.
Of course.
What is it about aging MLS washed up stars and just players that are on the wrong side of like 35 score? Roro Lopez scores against us. Sebastian Blanco scores against us.
We just don't put enough respect on them old men, maybe, after their recent draw against, Western Conference bottom feeders, Las Vegas Lights, before that, they were actually on a 4-game losing streak. So since our last meeting, they're on a 1-5-10 record in all comps.
They are winless in 14, Jason. Ray Hudson couldn't even make that soundbite sound good just by reading that out loud. Like there is no space where winless in 14 should ever be said out loud in a championship team.
Yeah, and they made some interesting changes here. Clearly winless in 14. He didn't start. So Bill Hamid started the season great for them. I kind of don't know where the wheels fell off at Miami, but they actually traded him to the Tampa Bay Rowdies. And then weirdly enough, there was kind of a trade back where Nicholas Campisi went the other way, maybe because he's Argentinian. I don't know. They wanted that some sort of connection.
We need to complete the chemistry on the ultimate
team. Ultimate team chemistry. But it's weird. Campisi was actually riding the bench for the last 2 months, with the exception of like one Jägermeister Cup performance, and not terrible stats, but nothing really to write home about. Maybe he's significantly younger, though. Maybe this is very much a kind of looking to the future. Miami have the worst goal difference in the Eastern Conference here at a -16. So, I mean, he's got a lot of kind of work, and I don't know if this is going to be the piece to kind of get it together. He had a decent performance against Las Vegas. I think he had 4 or 5 saves there, but also it's Las Vegas, so it's hard to tell whether or not that's actually progress for them.
Yeah, the Hamid transfer is weird. You almost wonder, Hamid not doing an amazing job, but also not doing a terrible job.
He had a good game against us.
I'm curious what he brings that Tampa Bay saw in him. I wonder if there was a money transaction that was able to do, like Miami now knowing that they're in the wrong direction. Like Bolo Canyote now has been sold on after they only got him in this offseason from El Paso. I'm wondering if they're now jettisoning players where there's value to be had, because, whether we like to acknowledge or not, Miami is still treated like this youth academy extension project. It will always be a loser on the financial side of things. And if the talent doesn't show up, maybe ownership's just like, hey, let's extract some dollars where we can. I do know that Hamid wouldn't have moved to any place other than probably Tampa, because his sister plays in the USL Super League. I think she's at the Fort Lauderdale team. And so obviously would want to stay in the kind of the Florida market. So maybe there was maybe Bill Hamid got a little like, I'm better than this. And, you'll never sing DC United NYCFC legend loud enough here with only 200 fans.
In the same vein, though, not to go too far off tangent, Tampa has been struggling, and maybe they needed some of that like veteran leadership.
They need that Bill Hamid magic.
Just to kind of ride out the season.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but like when we look at this team, right, unlike Rhode Island FC, Miami front-loaded a lot of their home matches, right? Like it's a warmer climate, it's a better place to play. So some of the, we talked earlier in the season, we're like, how is Miami in the spot they're in? Like, congratulations to them. Like, because you want to see teams not be consistent cellar dwellers. You want to see them rise to the occasion. So it's like, okay, Miami's figured things out. All of that kind of came on this front-loaded home schedule performance, and it wasn't even still that great. Arguably, they've only scored 25%, or excuse me, they only have one more additional win this season home than they do away. It's that the fact that they've scored 25% more of their goals at home as opposed to on the road. So again, those 300 fans are really appreciating all of that goal production. But like you said, Miami is just set up almost to flounder, I feel like, at times. Defensively, they've been very vulnerable this season, and maybe that's why we've seen the rotations in Akinyote and Hamid go off to other teams. Like you said, they've conceded 16 goals from their outings this season when you look at like multiple goal games, right? So they're not even keeping these tight at times. They're getting scored on, and then they're getting scored on again and again. So in 16 of their 22, 23 matches, they've been at least double dunked on at some point across this 2025 campaign. It doesn't make sense other than when you watch it. And I only watched the last 3 games, so hard to say if this is the same thing that they've been having going on the last part of the season. But they want to play compact. They want to play tight in the midfield. They don't care if you go out to the wings, and they want to try to catch you not in a low block, but somewhere in that middle third and try to transition the game. The problem is once you tear apart that compact shape, they go into scramble defense, and they are very bad at running at their own goal and doing that fly-by-wire defending. Like they seem to, as soon as they're out of shape, all bets are off with this team. And a lot of faster teams have punished them once they disorganize that back line and that deeper midfield. Weirdly enough, this team's not terrible. Like, they have some actual league-leading stats. They lead the league in interceptions, in recovery, and possession won in the final third. Again, wanting to disrupt opponents a little bit higher up the pitch. But they also then lead the league in the terrible stats, like shots on goal against, goals conceded, clearances, penalties conceded. Again, part of that emergency scramble when they're running backwards, red cards and fouls. They're pretty high up in the foul column as well. So, like, to me, this team has an idea of what they want to be, and then as soon as they go out there, like, no plan survives the battlefield. As soon as they get out there, it doesn't survive that first attack from their opponents, and it's just all bets are off. I would ask you, when you looked at this, whether it was the mob or the tape that you watched, what would you tell me this team's DNA is?
You know, like you kind of mentioned some of this. They want to be compact, right? They kind of want to sit back there. They don't want to be too adventurous. Their fullbacks actually don't go too high. They're a lot more into that, like, defensive cover, as opposed to, like, providing overlapping attacks. You know, you wouldn't know it because the possession stats aren't there, maybe because they're getting dunked on a lot, but they actually kind of want to have the ball. They want to kind of attempt to build their way up through the field as opposed to just, like, straight up throwing it over the top, bypassing it. And they really want to get Sebastian Blanco on the ball there to kind of be that maestro, to kind of dictate play so that they can move the ball forward and kind of create those chances. And they're kind of maybe guilty of, like, trying to look for that perfect pass, trying to find a way to cut lines. But to a certain extent also, you know, Bonfiglio has scored quite a number of goals this year. So they're having some success. It's just very much the back, like the defense, that's really letting them down. And maybe also kind of, weirdly enough to say, maybe not converting as many of those chances as they should in regards to they're creating those chances, but they're not always, you know, they're kind of half chances, if you will.
And I would also argue too, like, I think you're right that Blanco was supposed to be the centerpiece of this attack, but he's getting less and less minutes now. I don't know if it's the age. I don't know if it's, you know, he's like, I don't need to play this hard for a team that's not even going to make it in the playoffs. I don't know if the experiment, the Argentinian 2016 Timbers experiment, has failed.
I mean, he's, you know, isn't he 37, 30? Like, he's up there, I think. Yeah. And I think that he tried it down in Argentina, and I don't think it would, you know, struggled down there too. And similar to us, a lot of those South American leagues are very physical, just like America. So I think some of these older players really, you know, kind of get shell-shocked here a little bit. As we start to, like, look into the match here, we've got our refs here. Christian Campo Hernandez. We have assistant refs Rhett Hamill and Juan Pablo Casas, and Rafael Santos as the fourth official here.
It's going to be interesting to see how they officiate in Mr. Worldwide Stadium. In terms of injuries, it's just Rio Hope Gunn, still the only one listed. Still not sure what that injury is. I'd have to ask fans that went to the practice session this week to see if they got a glimpse into it on what happened there for him. Jason, walk us through what we think might be the formation, guaranteed to be wrong.
Yeah. You know, Koke Vegas and net, I think we got that one absolute spot on. When we look at that back line, Ame Mabika is going to be out, so we're thinking Grant Stoneman, Karifa Yao, and then Ugo Bacharach will return to the back line. We're looking at a midfield four of Frank Nodarce, with returns of Clay Holstad and Mark Ibarra as they got some rest after a long week, with Jose Quizera back out there on the left.
He's not on the graphic, but he is there. I'm having a graphic problem with this particular slide. I'm going to have to go back and re-engineer. I know I put Quizera in that. I promise you. I know sometimes it doesn't feel like he's on the pitch, but Jose will absolutely be there.
Watch, now the graphic is going to be right. the actual text is wrong. Then a front three there of AST, JJ Williams, and Noah Fuson. We're thinking with how well Noah Fuson played that coach likes to ride the hot hand, and I think that he's going to get another opportunity to kind of show what he can bring to this team in the final stretch of the season.
Yeah, I think, you know, looking at the argument here, Mark Ibarra, I think it's the start for his set piece distribution.
There's calmness on the ball that,
Yeah, and with Amay out, you look at the center back opportunities here, whether, and this comes down to if Grant can put a 90-minute performance in. Obviously, it was a back-to-back game week last week. But if everyone's healthy and good to go, I think you actually see either Zach or Frank be the rotational piece as the utility player. So that's why I have him out, since he can't do the double pivot. Hugo's going to have to move to the back line no matter what. So one of those two players will be needed just as a defender rotation if need be, or a midfield, placement also. So you're going to get that utility. AST, obviously, he's going to get it too. The real question, does Holstead make his way back in, or is he relegated to a substitute role here? That's the question. I have Sanchez back in because we're one player light, but could you see Maxi get a start again, or is the Maxi experiment done? We addressed this earlier, and then also too is Diop. He should be getting closer and closer to getting minutes. Is he a player then that comes off the bench, and does this all go to it doesn't matter because we got this completely wrong, right? Do you think Diop will actually make a starting appearance by the end of the season?
I don't think he'll make a starting appearance, but I think he'll get some minutes.
It's too late for him to gel at the level we need, knowing how important the remainder of games are.
Yeah, in regard, I know we just said that you can almost feels like you can do no wrong with the defense, but also these are also guys who have either been here last year or have been through the season together and really understand the way that we play. To throw someone into the back there almost feels like you're asking for chaos there.
Yeah. On this Miami FC side of things, Nicholas Campisi will be in goal in a back four. They set up as a fourth, 2-3-1 primarily. Jonathan Ricketts on that right side with Dalton Knutson, and Cesar Garcia has been stepping up to replace Akinyode, who's now left the team. Alejandro Matrano will probably most likely be on that left side. The double pivot, this is probably the most accurate thing I could say. It seems like this pairing has played in a majority of the games in Mateus Romero and Diego Mercado. They're definitely going to be in that pair of sixes. It's the midfield three on that front line of the attack that I just don't know what we're going to see quite yet. I've got it set up right now with Christian Vasquez, Sebastian Blanco as that maestro in the middle, and Lucas Milano in that left side. But you could argue, as of late, Tobias Zarate and Alan Gavianes have been in those positions. We've seen less and less minutes. I think in the last 3 matches for both of those older statesmen, they've only been getting about 22 to 30 minutes. So I don't know if that's just that wear and tear we were talking about a second ago, or if there's something else to it. And then, of course, Bonfiglio will absolutely be up at the front, terrorizing those lines there. Jason, we talked about the minutes for these aging players. Is this a sign of to the rest of the league, don't go out and get this many older superstars, because it's not the risk worth taking. It's a long season combining with Open Cup, Jägermeister. You can have one, but you can't have two. You can't have 5, like it seems they were trying to go for this year with Miami FC.
Yeah, I think that is very much a kind of possibility. I would argue that this is a physical league. There's a lot of running, and I think that trying to sign some aging, so even hashtag not an MLS podcast, but even MLS has kind of started to walk back from that, right? I've become very selective in regards to what kind of aging stars they go after, right? It's more of the people who are very like you look at Miller, right? A professional athlete throughout his entire career, that he's going to be able to manage his minutes and give it all. You don't just pick a random name out of a hat and it's well, this guy played somewhere and he's famous and he'll sell jerseys. It doesn't work like that anymore. And I don't think it's going to work in USL either. I think that this team needs an identity, right? We joke here, all right, they were the, Italian national team last year. Now they're the failed 2016 Timbers Argentina experiment.
Which country do you go for next?
Do we sign aging Brazilian stars? I mean, that might be fun, but I think they need to
sign me up, Douglas Costa.
I mean, why not? I mean, didn't Memphis 901 had a really sizable Brazilian contingent? What happened to all those guys?
Bruno and others. Yeah, I don't know where they went afterwards. I lost track of them. it's an interesting prospect. I guess then, again, the league's going to have to figure things out, especially you can't take gambles like this once promotion and relegation come into full swing. So it will be interesting to see. I guess then, Miami is not out of playoff contention, but they're out.
For all intents and purposes, yeah, they're out.
Does this game make it more dangerous? Because now you get a look at one of the few teams where you can ruin their chances. Do they play a little extra more difficult, especially because they got one of their 5 victories against us? Does this bring this team into this match going, we absolutely can beat them, we're slightly better at home, and we can take away something that they did to us at the end of last season, and we can ruin their chances for the playoffs?
I'd argue if more of the same team from last year were here, that maybe, because they would say, well, we got embarrassed 8-1 away, they would want to maybe kind of revenge that. But it's one of those things where even like when we talked about the banter between like Clay and Ugo, Ugo's like, I wasn't there at the time. Like, I don't care. So they won't look at this and probably don't really have anything against this team. I think they'll want to be playing for their contracts, for their careers in that regard. So they're not going to go out there and just like lay over. But without Pro-Rel, like, what do bottom feeders play for? Except for, like I said, contracts and like career.
I mean, you could say, hey, our trophy was something we inscribed on our own trophy store shop that we, and said, hey, we knocked Rhode Island FC out of the playoffs in 2020.
I mean, yeah, some players would play for a sense of pride in that regard, but also when you're getting beaten and battered left and right, it's got to be hard to pick yourself up every week and kind of, say, hey, we go again.
It'll be interesting to see. This, I think, is one of their last 2 home games. Weirdly, we only have 2 home games left as well, so it will definitely be interesting. Jason, how does Rhode Island FC beat Miami on the day and continue their advancement into securing a playoff position?
I think we really need a spark in the attack. I think we saw some of that blueprint in Indy, especially in that goal that Noah helped create. I think we need to be a little more direct. Like, how often have we seen us cut down the wings, like what we saw last year from Joj a lot, or even from like Steven, like, and cut that ball back to the center of the box, to the top of the box. Like, it doesn't always have to be a cross. Like, you can send in low balls and kind of have those runners from midfield or from the midfield try and crash the box, kind of create some chaos, or even force an own goal. I think we just need to be a little more direct. Like, at this point, I have absolute faith in our defense. Just keep doing what you're doing. They're doing great back there. The attack really needs to kind of turn it up like a notch here if we're going to really pick up any results and kind of find our way into the playoffs.
Yeah, I would say the only caveat to the defense right now is just be mindful in the similar vein of what Kizza did last week for Indy. You got to watch Bonfiglio because he can do the same thing, and he's a little bit bigger too. So like he can battle with our defenders. He's not a Karifa Yao size player or anything like that, but he's going to want to try and sit on that back line and wait for a connecting pass from someone in the midfield. And Yao's good at that. Yao's great at taking on a single defender versus like playing in a zone or marking an entire area. He wants the one-on-one challenges. So I'm not as worried, but you got to contain Bonfiglio.
Absolutely.
And then I think also to your point, this is going to be an area where Rhode Island FC can really shine out wide. They can really take advantage. Miami plays very compact, and their fullbacks are in like a defensive lower block with the rest of the team, so they want to drive you back towards the middle or slow you down and let the defensive shape catch up. And so I think to the point of like a Quezera and AST Fuson taking on that defender and then getting past will just have Miami looking towards their own goal, and that's where you find where you're going to score is just with them having Miami is just so much better when the ball's in front of them. When the ball's behind them and they're chasing, they really do fall apart. So I would argue that. And then really the easiest part of the blueprint, score first. I don't know. I'm not even going to read the stat anymore. It's like, 19 games now in a row.
Every game ever.
Where we've won if we score first. So, do that. Do it in the first half so we can get rid of that ugly, we haven't scored a goal in 13, or 20 first half games, and we haven't scored a goal in 13 games now. Like, let's get rid of some stats here and start building this team over some success. But I'm not even giving a prediction because after what Miami did to us earlier this season, I want to stay humble and just reflect on it. I will say though, from a projection perspective, fans do believe that 58% of them that Rhode Island FC will win this game outright. 32% will go to Miami thinking they've got it,
win.
and then 10% are sickos for that draw. Reminder, the game is Friday, so don't think it's a Saturday game and then show up at the Guild and go, what happened to the match? It is this Friday, not Saturday.
Was it supposed to be a Wednesday game?
Yeah, this game's been moved several times.
Yeah, this was one of those ones I had penciled in for like a potential trip because, you know, one of our favorite random breweries is down there we wanted to try, but it didn't work out.
So it is Friday on September 19th at 7 p.m. at Mr. Worldwide Soccer Stadium, FIU. The game is only going to be on ESPN Plus. It won't be on any of the other auxiliary support channels, and 790 will not be covering this game. They traded this game away so that they could cover the Jägermeister semifinal. So there will be no radio coverage on this one. So you will not hear Tom Quinlan's voice giving you the play-by-play. Jason, I don't think I missed anything, but if I did, what's the good word, and what are your final thoughts?
You know, it's sad to think, is this potentially our last game at Mr. Worldwide Stadium?
I hope not.
How far along is that project they got going on?
That's a year or two away. The Homestead development is going to be a year or two away. So I want next year. So for all the fans, we always start talking about the away day trip. I want to go there. And I want to go in such force that we have more Rhode Island FC fans than actual Miami fans, so that no one can ever, or at least then we can say we did it first.
And they're just all sit in the center there. So
absolutely. And I'm also still always terrified. I know they're doing the investment in that Homestead project, but like this team continues to be a perennial loser. We've all said that it's just like I'm a billionaire and I'm an eccentric billionaire with money to burn and I don't care. But like when he does stop caring, like this team could go away like that. I hate to even vocalize that, but I would like to go see this team one time in case they have the curtain pulled on them at some point. So absolutely, next year Miami FC is the must travel destination for us at least. So we'll see what happens from there.
All right, well, let's wrap it up here. Always a great time. Make sure to check out our friends over at the Blazing Musket for all of your New England soccer coverage, and that's including RIFC at theblazingmusket.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky at RIFC Podcast. It's the curse of not doing it live. I had to make one mistake.
Just don't go to that website. That sounds like a not family-friendly website.
Yeah, I don't know what that one is. We have an Instagram. It's at Raising Anchor, and we have a website, raisinganchorpodcast.com. Anchor's up, y'all. We'll catch you soon.
Anchor's up, everyone. See you guys later.